Welcome to Therapist Confidential, a psychotherapy.net podcast. And now, here's your host, Travis Heath.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Season 2 of the Therapist Confidential podcast. That's right, Season 2. We've been gone for a minute, haven't we? Gosh, it's been, I think, a couple months at this point. I've missed all of you. And I'm glad you're back for Season 2. So what's going to be different in Season 2? I don't know. Probably not much. I mean, I'm going to talk to you some. Hopefully, we're going to have some really cool people on. Well, I know for a fact we will have some really cool people on that will talk about the work we do as therapists from multiple different perspectives, meaning we won't just have therapists on, right? We'll have people who are therapist adjacent. I mean, if you listen to Season 1, you heard Metzley, who was a teenager that told us about therapy from a teenager's perspective, which was actually our most listened to episode, which I thought was really cool, which shows that people are interested in not only hearing from therapists themselves, but also, from other people and their perspectives on therapy or their expertise that they might have that is different than just therapists themselves. So we're going to talk to all sorts of cool people. Hopefully I'll bring up some thought-provoking topics for you as well. And we're so happy you're still here with us in Season 2. So I'm going to ride solo with you today. And I want to talk about validation. Validation in therapy. I want to talk about this because, boy, I see it coming up and people having very different opinions about it. It's really interesting to me. It seems to me that validation is one of the most common practices in therapy. And I don't necessarily think that's intrinsically good or bad. It's just interesting to me because I also don't really recall in formalized training or otherwise someone teaching me a practice of validation, but I remember sort of picking it up as something we're supposed to be doing in some way. And really what I'm interested in is what happens when validation becomes maybe overused. Also, what happens when validation maybe becomes abandoned, and in favor of something like, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud, or I'm the truth teller therapist, so I don't validate. I guess what I'm saying is I wonder what sits beyond both of these positions. I have some thoughts about perhaps why validation becomes central early on in our learning. Generally speaking, it works quickly. If you say something to me and I validate that, often that feels good, right? I don't even mean as a therapist, just in general. In a therapeutic context, it tends to reduce feelings of anxiety too, for both the therapist and also potentially for the client, right? And validating can feel safe. It can almost feel correct, if you will. And I want to point out that I think sometimes validation may be confused with empathy. Like, I definitely think there's some overlap between validation and empathy, but I don't think they're the same thing, right? I mean, the way I think about empathy isn't you put yourself in someone else's shoes, as is often described, but really it's we try to become another person in their own shoes, which is a totally different exercise, right? And I think sometimes validation, just saying something like, oh, yes, I can totally see how that's so hard, or, oh, yes, those feelings are valid. I can see how that can feel like empathy, and I think it overlaps and intersects with empathy, but I don't think it's the same thing. I also worry, just to be honest, about a therapeutic practice that relies almost solely on empathy. Again, I'm not anti-empathy, and I'm not anti-validation, but I'm just interested in questioning these a little bit and trying to understand how they're showing up in our practice. And I wonder sometimes if validation becomes almost a safety strategy for therapists. Because if we validate, we can avoid getting it wrong. We can avoid doing something or saying something, acting in a way that might feel hurtful to someone. We can also avoid clients negatively evaluating us, right? We become more likable when we validate. And I think most people want to be liked on some level or another. So in these ways, when is validation serving as more of a self-protective kind of mechanism than it is, an actual quote unquote clinical intervention? Not my favorite way of speaking, but the field likes that kind of language. I also wonder if sometimes over-reliance on validation can interrupt other questions. Questions that help us better understand what's happened to the person we're working with. If all we're doing is they're telling us their story and we're validating their experience, we're missing opportunities to ask questions that help us better understand what's happened to them and how it's affected them. And in this way, we become skilled at soothing, but maybe we become a little bit less skilled at shifting or opening up new possibilities. Because soothing in itself, I don't think often anyways, opens up new possibilities. And I'm not saying soothing is always bad. I think that can be a part of our role as a therapist. But I wonder if we become so focused on soothing, if we miss the possibility to ask questions that open up new doors or portals for people. And I think if we don't ask questions, like anything else in our practices, if we don't ask questions about this can become a stable way of interacting. It can become the characteristic way that we as therapists interact, where we're supportive, we're affirming, but also maybe then we're not asking questions and opening up possibilities beyond that. And again, maybe that's what some people hope for out of therapy, is mostly support and affirmation. I'm also wondering what lies beyond that in our work. Now, what's interesting is I also see the pendulum swing all the way the other direction, where some therapists are saying you should never validate, right? Or even if they don't say never, they minimize it, they dismiss it. They sort of look at validation as the tool of the unsophisticated therapist. And instead, the way that they practice without validation, they're the truth tellers. They're direct, they're incisive. They're the ones who say what others won't. I say the quiet part out loud. That kind of mentality. Now, what worries me about this is it can subtly shift the focus from the person we're speaking with, the quote unquote client. It can shift the focus away from their process to the therapist's, how would we say this, almost like performance of identity, right? Like it's more about, I'm the truth teller. I'm the one who says the quiet part out loud. I'm the one who tackles the tough things. And that becomes more about an identity performance, perhaps, right? Than it is about the client. Now, also, to be fair, the flip side of that is to be over-validating maybe is an identity performance of its own. I also want to share a quick story from a client I worked with, many years ago at this point, 15 plus years ago, I think, early on in my sort of independent practice days. I had a client who was referred to me for anger management. I found that usually that has a little to do with actual managing of anger, the work that we do, but that's what it gets called, anger management. And I worked with this dude for, 3 or 4 months, something like that. And at the end of it, he's walking out the door and he says to me, hey, you're really good at giving gifts. Literally, this is our last session. He walks out, he's walking out the door and he says, you're really good at giving gifts. I'm a little confused. And I say, I'm not sure what you mean. And he says, okay, look, there's two ways to give gifts. I don't know how he decided on this binary, but he did. He said there's two ways to give gifts. One is you take the gift and you sort of like haphazardly wrap it up, and you take it and you throw it through someone's window. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, is he threatening me or something? Does he know where I live? I started having all of these thoughts that, of course, were more about my anxiety than anything else, right? But that's what he said was the first way to deliver a gift. He goes, the second way to deliver a gift is that it's the same gift, but you take it and you wrap it up nicely and properly, and you put a bow on it and you hand it to someone. And he goes, it's the same thing inside. He goes, that's what you do. And to be honest with you, in this moment, I wish I could tell you I received this insight immediately. I did not. I was still worried he was going to throw something through my window. So I just said sort of, okay, nicely, like, oh, that's really nice. But it didn't really land until I was driving home that night. And as I was driving home, I literally pulled to the side of the road and was like almost stunned when this hit me. I'm like, I think that's the best compliment I've ever gotten as a therapist, because I think what he was communicating was that I was bringing some hard things to his attention, some things that might be hard to look at, but I was presenting them in a way he could receive them. Now, he used the gift metaphor, right? I actually, again, I was too slow in the moment to figure out what he was communicating, but I actually think this is what we're trying to do. And so even if we have very accurate observations about the world or questions that can lead to that, if the person we're in conversation with doesn't feel understood, this kind of insight that we're hoping for without some kind of connection or attunement, it can lead to defensiveness. It can lead to people shutting down. It can lead to just superficial agreement to keep it moving, right? And so this kind of truth teller, I'm not going to validate. There's a middle ground somewhere in there, I think, right? Where, yes, we can tackle some difficult conversations and some difficult experiences and ideas in therapy, but doing that in a way that helps people feel understood, genuinely understood, and not leading to defensiveness or shutting down. Now, of course, all of us get defensive sometimes. All of us shut down sometimes. Sometimes that happens in therapy. It's not the worst thing in the world because you can explore it together with the person, right? But all I'm saying is that neither one of these extremes of validation or being the truth teller seem like they get it quite right. Provoking a reaction isn't necessarily the same as facilitating change. Now, someone could say, well, once I provoke that reaction, I work with it and I work with the transference and the countertransfer. Okay. Yes, and provoking a reaction, I don't think is necessarily the same as facilitating change. And for people who are already feeling misunderstood, they may experience this stance as, dismissive, corrective, even unsafe emotionally. And so then therapy risks becoming this place where people are told what is true rather than discovering that in collaboration. So for me, it's of course more complicated than this, but I think curiosity is kind of a nice third way here that helps us reorganize this discussion a bit. Validating might be saying, oh, that makes sense. It makes total sense, right? Challenging would be, saying, I'm not sure if that's accurate, right? Or I wonder if you're actually experiencing blank. And a stance of curiosity, I think, is more like, can you help me understand how this works for you? Can you help me understand what knowledge and experience you have around this? And in this way, we're not taking a position of validating or challenging, but more we're kind of studying the position, right? We're paying attention and trying to learn from the person's understanding of their experience. And in that way, I think curiosity can avoid premature agreement or disagreement. I don't necessarily think agreement or disagreement is a problem in therapy, but curiosity can help avoid that happening prematurely. And I think it also can help create space for complexity, for nuance, for contradiction, for possibility and movement. And curiosity invites different questions, I think. It invites questions like, when is this useful for you? When is it not as useful? What happens if it becomes strengthened or if it loosens? Are you noticing that this is protective for you in some ways or making you feel unsafe? I mean, of course, there could be many more options than just those, but what have you learned about this over time as it relates to your life or whatever it is we're talking about it? Where did you learn that? Where did you come to learn that? And I think that when we become curious in this way, it opens up pathways that validation alone or confrontation alone cannot necessarily do. And I think curiosity can still communicate presence. It can still communicate engagement. And it doesn't have to necessarily strengthen the client's existing narrative or the narratives they've come to know about themselves or the world. And I think our ability to stay curious, even when we believe we're certain, is important. Because if we do this work for long enough, we come to see patterns and we can start to feel pretty certain. Of course, my favorite part of therapy often is when I'm asking questions and I think something is certain and it's not. It goes in an unexpected direction. Now, to do this, it requires that we tolerate ambiguity. It requires tolerating that we don't know everything. And it also requires that we have some degree of patience. We don't move to resolve things too quickly. So hopefully this gets you thinking about validation, how it shows up in your practice, and not so much that it's a good thing or a bad thing, but just thinking about how it's functioning for you. Perhaps over-validation can lead therapy to feel supportive, but also get stagnant sometimes. And if I could call it like anti-validation, maybe that leads therapy to become sharp and direct, but also it can sometimes feel unsafe. Whereas curiosity, I think, helps therapy become perhaps a little bit more exploratory and generative. So in that way, validation isn't necessarily the problem. It's how we're using it, when we're using it, how frequently we're using it. Some questions that I've been asking of myself as I've been pondering this episode of the podcast. Am I validating because it serves the person I'm in conversation with or because it stabilizes me? And am I responding to the client's position and experience or genuinely trying to understand how it works? Because just responding to their position or experience isn't the same as really trying to understand how it works. And for me, and I gather this from colleagues of mine who have watched me, students who have watched me, studying my own work, at least for me, I'm at my best when I'm asking questions and genuinely trying to understand how someone's experience works or what their position is and how they've come to that position, rather than validating that position as good, bad, or indifferent. Thanks for joining me here on the first episode of season 2. I've loved getting the emails when I was doing these little short episodes prior to our break from season 1. When we were getting the website up and all that good stuff, the new psychotherapy.net website, I was getting emails about, different shows, different episodes, thoughts, feelings, reactions. Keep those coming. It's awesome to be in conversation with all of you. And also, if you're finding this useful, enjoyable, give us the 5 stars or the likes or all the different things that let people know that the show might be worth checking out. And also send it to a friend. Send it to a fellow therapist or someone else interested in mental health. All right, everybody. I hope your spring is off to a good start, and I'll speak with you again soon.